Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Dot Cat for the Nintendo Switch. And if you didn't realize there is actually a dot in front of the word cat in the title, I'm here to tell you, there is. But moving on from what could possibly be considered the most obvious statement of the year, if you are like me and you cruise the eShops just to find whatever looks unique or interesting, you've probably seen Dot Cat floating around in the eShop. And as its pretty much sole descriptor, its key selling point in its own description is that you get to play through a platforming game as a cute cat. You probably also, like me, thought that $2 was a ridiculously low asking price. Because, I mean, come on, cat game. I mean, we've all seen Cat's Quest 1 and 2, we've seen Stray Cat Doors, and besides featuring cats as the main protagonist, they're actually pretty solid games. And so with the tantalizing morsel of being able to play through a platformer as a, quote, cute cat, well, it was just too much to pass up, and I had to know what the story was. And I'd have to say, after dumping a lot, probably way too much of my time into this game, I found that the story itself is actually beyond compare. And that is largely because, as I would like to tell my students, you cannot divide by zero. Meaning that if there is no story, you really can't compare it. And while having absolutely no story at all, no names, no themes, no scenario, well, while that isn't actually super deleterious to a straight up platformer, it does leave quite a bit of questions. But moving on, the gameplay as well also kind of follows this theme. And that is that the only thing you do in the game is play the game as a cute cat. But how do you play as a cute cat? Well, you probably play the game in the way a cute cat would. Well, how do you do that? Well, I don't know. I'm not here to answer your questions. Except that that's actually exactly what I'm supposed to do. And so breaking down the gameplay as far as I can, the controls are really simple. All you can do is jump. And so besides maybe Q*bert, this is one of the most fundamental platformers I think I've ever played in my life. There are enemies though, and they're actually kind of cute little graphics. Everything between little fuzzballs to little rabbits to even little wiggly snakes. And of course, as a cat who can jump, if you can jump on the enemy, you've pretty much neutralized it. But if it touches you in any way, shape, or form, you dead. And while there really is absolutely nothing to go on for how to play this game, built into the level design, which is really hectic and does feel a little bit random, there are arrow markers built in, which probably point you to some sort of objective. But following these arrows, sometimes you find an objective, you find a jewel which goes toward a counter in the top right of the screen, but that, I don't know what it does. And other times you'll follow arrows to dead ends, and other times you'll follow arrows to something like a black hole that whisks you off to some other area. And initially I thought these areas were connected, but I get the distinct feeling that they're not. And so as you platform your way across spinning saw traps or over small white fluffy creatures, you'll avoid lava pits and encounter new-ish areas and escape through portals that introduce you to new portions of the map, which is, in a word, incomprehensible. Now, if you like to explore, maybe that's a huge asset to your gameplay. And if you like to be led down dead ends and find absolutely nothing except another chance to die, you'll probably also have a great time with it. But one of the final game mechanics that I haven't actually introduced yet is the checkpoint system. Which again, like the gameplay and the game's map itself, seems to be a bit random, and I'm not actually sure how it works. But every once in a while, maybe after a certain number of jumps, or once you encounter a certain platform in a certain area, a checkpoint will seemingly randomly spawn, and it doesn't spawn every single time you pass that point, but occasionally it does, and if you die, you'll be warped back to that checkpoint. And that, in sum total, is the entirety of Dot Cat. Jump around, pounce on enemies, or don't, follow signs and find something, or don't. And as far as I could tell with my time in the game, that is actually pretty much it. I was initially drawn to the game with its visuals because I am a fan of pixel art, and I'm a fan of interpretive indie games. And while the imagery, especially in the pixel work and the animation for the little white fluffy enemies, is really, really good, the rest of it just seems to be held to a fairly nominal standard. And unfortunately, I wish I could give that level of praise to the soundtrack. And in all honesty, the soundtrack gave me more reminiscence of an ice cream truck driving through the neighborhood than actually playing a classic retro-style platformer. And I don't mean that to be any kind of shade thrown on the game, that literally was my impression. And so in sum total, if you are considering paying the extreme deep sale price of $2, there are most certainly a lot of things to consider about Dot Cat. First and foremost is just the general hectic random nature of the game, with no story, with no real clear objectives even, and a map that is beyond comprehension. It probably would take a very special type of gamer to get much enjoyment out of it. You can bounce around and pounce on enemies as a cute pixelated cat, but unless that's the only thing you want for those $2, you're not gonna get much else. And even then, complaints can be raised about the actual physics and control mechanics of the game. Jumping is a bit sporadic and a bit floaty at the same time, and hitboxes don't really align very well for either platform contact or enemy contact. And so even then, even though the only thing you can really do in .cat is jump around like a cute cat, even that could use a little bit more polish. And so I'd have to say, looking at .cat as a full experience, as a whole package, it's probably one that might want to go on that avoid list. And that is as far as I want to go with that. But anyway, that does bring us to the end of the review of .cat, now on the Nintendo Switch, if you so choose to play it after having seen this review. And so if you enjoyed this review, if you found it informational, informative, helpful, or just comical, feel free to click that like button or throw us a comment to show your support. And don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content, because we do put out a couple of reviews a week, and we are one of the only review channels on all of YouTube that exclusively covers indie games. And so whether it is an unforgettable gem or an absolute hard pass, chances are if it's on the Switch, you're gonna find out about it right here. But anyway, this has been The Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.